Listen, I need to tell you something that might sting a little. That voice in your head telling you that you'll start tomorrow, that you'll finally get your act together next Monday, that this time will be different. It's lying to you. And the worst part? You already know it. But here's what nobody's telling you. It's not your fault that you keep failing. You've been fed a complete lie about how discipline actually works. And once you understand what I'm about to share with you, everything changes. I mean everything. You see, for years, I believed the same myth everyone else does. I thought discipline was about being tougher, gritting my teeth harder, somehow finding this magical willpower that successful people seem to have. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., pumped with motivation, ready to conquer the world. By noon, I'd already broken 3 promises to myself. Sound familiar? The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to force myself and started understanding myself. When I learned that discipline isn't about strength, it's about strategy. It's not about fighting who you are, it's about designing a life where the right choices feel natural. So here's what we're going to do together. I'm going to walk with you through a complete transformation. Not the kind that requires you to become a different person, but the kind that works with who you already are. By the time we're done, you won't be white-knuckling your way through life anymore. You'll have built something better, a system that carries you forward even on the days you don't feel like showing up. The biggest lie about discipline. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. I was sitting in a coffee shop in Portland, watching this guy across from me. Every morning, same time, same table, he'd pull out his laptop and write for exactly 2 hours. Rain, shine, hangover, didn't matter. I remember thinking, man, that guy must have incredible willpower. One day, I finally asked him about it. And you know what he told me? Willpower? I barely think about it anymore. I just show up because, well, that's what I do. That sentence broke something open in my mind. He wasn't fighting himself every morning. He wasn't using some superhuman force of will. He'd simply become someone for whom writing was as automatic as brushing his teeth. Here's the truth bomb that most self-help gurus won't tell you. Discipline has almost nothing to do with willpower. Willpower is like your phone battery. It drains throughout the day. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every time you choose the hard thing over the easy thing, you're draining that battery, and once it's dead, you're running on fumes. Think about it. Why do you make your worst decisions at night? Why do you break your diet after a stressful day at work? Why do you skip the gym when you had a bunch of meetings? It's not because you're weak. It's because your willpower battery is depleted. The people you admire, the ones who seem to have endless discipline, they're not relying on willpower at all. They've built something far more powerful, systems that work independently of how they feel. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine 2 friends, Sarah and Mike, both want to get in shape. Sarah relies on motivation. She wakes up, asks herself if she feels like working out, and then makes a decision. Mike doesn't ask himself anything. He laid out his gym clothes the night before right next to his bed. When his alarm goes off, he doesn't think. He just puts them on. By the time his brain catches up, he's already walking to the gym. Same goal. Completely different approach. Guess who's still working out 6 months later? how your brain actually works. Okay? Let's talk about what's really happening inside your head. And I promise I'm going to make this simple because understanding this changed my entire life. Your brain has two main operating systems. Think of it like your computer. You've got the stuff you actively control, and you've got the stuff running in the background. The first system is like your conscious mind, your thinking brain. This is the part that makes plans, sets goals, and promises you'll do better tomorrow. It's smart, it's logical, it's great at strategy. But here's the problem, it gets tired, really tired, every time you make a decision, even tiny ones like, should I check my phone? Or should I have that cookie? You're using up energy from this system. By the afternoon, you've made hundreds of these little decisions, and your thinking brain is exhausted. That's when you find yourself scrolling through social media for an hour or eating that entire bag of chips. The second system is your automatic brain. This is the part that handles everything you do without thinking. How you brush your teeth, your morning routine, the route you drive to work. It's incredibly powerful, but it's not smart. It just runs whatever programs you've installed in it. Here's the beautiful part. You get to choose what programs to install. Most people are trying to run their entire life on their thinking brain. They're making every action a conscious choice. Should I work out? Should I eat healthy? Should I work on my project? By lunchtime, they're mentally exhausted from all these decisions, and they default to whatever feels easiest. But imagine a different approach. Imagine programming your automatic brain to handle your important behaviors. You don't decide whether to work out each morning. You just have a routine where working out is step 3, right after coffee and before your shower. You don't debate what to eat. You prepped your meals on Sunday, so healthy eating is the path of least resistance. This is what I mean by systems over willpower. You're not trying to force yourself to do hard things. You're designing your life so the hard things become automatic. The real path forward. Let me tell you about my friend Marcus. A few years ago, he was stuck in the exact same cycle you might be in right now. He'd set ambitious goals, feel excited for a few days, then crash and burn. He thought something was fundamentally broken in him. Then he tried something different. Instead of trying to overhaul his entire life, he made one tiny change. Every morning, right after pouring his coffee, he'd write down 3 things he was grateful for. That's it. Took him maybe 60 seconds. But here's what happened. That tiny habit became his anchor. It was so small, he couldn't fail at it, even on his worst days. And because he never failed, he started seeing himself differently. He wasn't someone who couldn't stick to things anymore. He was someone who showed up every single day. 3 months later, he'd added a morning walk. 6 months later, he was meditating daily. A year later, his entire life looked different. But it all started with 60 seconds of gratitude. This is the shift I want you to make right now. Stop thinking about discipline as this massive mountain you have to climb through sheer force of will. Start thinking about it as a series of small automatic behaviors that stack on top of each other. You're not trying to become a different person. You're just installing better programs in your automatic brain. And once those programs are running, discipline stops feeling like work. It starts feeling like who you are. Understanding resistance Here's something nobody talks about. When you try to build discipline, your brain is going to fight you. Not because you're weak, but because it's literally doing its job. Your brain's primary function is to keep you safe and conserved energy. And from your brain's perspective, anything new or challenging is potentially dangerous and definitely energy expensive. So when you try to start a new habit, your brain throws up resistance. That resistance shows up as thoughts like, I'm too tired, I'll start tomorrow, this isn't the right time, or I don't feel like it. These aren't truths about reality. They're just your brain trying to keep you in familiar territory. I used to think these thoughts meant something was wrong with me. Now, I understand they're just background noise like a car alarm going off in the distance. They don't mean anything about my capability or my commitment. They're just my brain doing what brains do. The disciplined people you admire, they hear the same thoughts. They feel the same resistance. The difference is they've learned not to negotiate with it. They've built systems that move them forward regardless of what their brain is suggesting. Think about it like this. Imagine you're teaching a child to brush their teeth. At first, they resist. They complain. They try to skip it. But you don't negotiate. You don't debate. You just make it part of the routine. Eventually, they brush their teeth automatically without even thinking about it. That's exactly what you're doing with yourself. You're the parent, and your resistance is the complaining child. You acknowledge it, you understand it, but you don't let it make your decisions. The environment you can't ignore. Let me ask you something. If you were trying to quit drinking, would you keep your fridge stocked with beer and just rely on willpower to resist it? Of course not. That would be setting yourself up to fail. But somehow, we do this exact thing with our discipline goals all the time. We keep junk food in the house and wonder why we can't eat healthy. We keep our phones next to our beds and wonder why we can't stop scrolling. We stay in environments that pull us toward our old behaviors and wonder why change feels so hard. Your environment is stronger than your willpower. Always has been, always will be. I learned this the hard way. I kept trying to write more, but my desk was cluttered with distractions. I kept trying to eat healthier, but my kitchen was full of processed snacks. I kept trying to focus on deep work, but my phone was always within arm's reach, buzzing with notifications. Once I changed my environment, everything shifted. I cleared my desk of everything except my laptop and a notebook. I removed all junk food from my apartment, not hidden in a cabinet, completely gone. I put my phone in another room during work hours. Suddenly, discipline got easier. Not because I got stronger, but because I removed the need to be strong. The right choices became the obvious choices because I designed my environment to support them. Here's what I want you to do. Look around your space right now. What's visible, what's easily accessible? Is your environment supporting the person you want to become, or is it supporting the person you're trying to change? The identity shift. This is where everything comes together, and it's probably the most important thing I'll share with you. You can have the best systems in the world, but if you still see yourself as an undisciplined person, you'll sabotage them. Your brain has this powerful drive to act consistently with your identity. If you believe you're someone who never finishes things, or isn't a morning person, or doesn't have good habits, your brain will find ways to prove that belief true. But here's the beautiful part. You get to choose your identity, and every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you do those 3 push-ups you committed to, you're not just exercising, you're casting a vote for, I am someone who works out consistently. When you write that one paragraph, you're voting for, I am a writer. When you read those 2 pages, you're voting for, I am a reader. Your identity isn't some fixed thing you were born with. It's the accumulation of evidence you've gathered about yourself through your actions. And you can start gathering new evidence right now. I'm not asking you to fake it or pretend to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to start taking small actions that prove to yourself who you're becoming. Every small win reinforces your new identity. Every kept promise strengthens your self-trust. Remember my friend Marcus with his gratitude practice? The real transformation wasn't the habit itself. It was how he started seeing himself. He went from, I'm someone who can't stick to anything, to, I'm someone who shows up every single day. That identity shift unlocked everything else. Your first step. So here's where we are. You now understand that discipline isn't about willpower, it's about systems. You understand how your brain actually works. You understand that your environment shapes your behavior, and you understand that your identity is built through your actions. The question now is, what's your first step? And I'm going to make this ridiculously simple for you. Don't try to change everything at once. Don't create some massive transformation plan. Don't set a bunch of ambitious goals that require you to become a completely different person overnight. Instead, choose one tiny behavior that aligns with who you want to become. Make it so small, it feels almost silly not to do it. We're talking 2 minutes or less. Want to become a reader? Read 1 page before bed? Want to become someone who exercises? Do 5 push-ups every morning? Want to become a writer? Write 1 sentence every day. I know what you're thinking. That's not enough. I need to do more. But that's the old thinking, trying to creep back in. That's the approach that's failed you before. This time, we're playing a different game. We're not trying to force massive change through willpower. We're building evidence of your new identity through consistency. We're installing programs in your automatic brain through repetition. We're making discipline feel natural instead of forced. Start small. Stay consistent. Trust the process. Because here's what I know for sure. 6 months from now, you're going to be somewhere. The only question is whether you'll be somewhere better or somewhere exactly the same. That decision starts with the next small action you take. The promise of this journey. I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't a quick fix. There's no magic pill that's suddenly going to make you disciplined tomorrow morning. Anyone who promises you that is selling you a fantasy. But what I can promise you is this. If you stick with me, if you implement these systems, if you trust this process, your life will transform. Not because you'll suddenly become superhuman, but because you'll stop fighting against yourself and start working with yourself. You'll wake up 6 months from now and realize you haven't missed a workout in weeks, and it doesn't even feel hard anymore. You'll look at your creative work and see consistent progress that compounds into something meaningful. You'll notice that the person you're becoming matches the person you always wanted to be. And the best part, you won't be exhausted from forcing yourself. You'll have energy left over because your discipline systems are working in the background, carrying you forward automatically. This is possible for you, not because you're special or talented or different from anyone else, but because you're willing to understand how this actually works and apply it consistently. So take a breath. Let go of all the guilt about past failures. Forget about all the times you've started and stopped. None of that matters anymore. What matters is what you do next. Are you ready? Because in the next section, we're going to dive deep into how to actually build these systems step by step in a way that works with your brain instead of against it. Let's do this together. Okay, so you understand the foundation now. You know that willpower is a trap and systems are the answer. But here's where most people get stuck. They understand the concept intellectually, but they don't know how to actually build these systems in their real, messy, complicated lives. That's exactly what we're tackling now. We're going into the practical, step-by-step process of building discipline that actually sticks. No theory, no fluff, just the real strategies that work. Becoming the person you want to be. Let me tell you about a turning point in my life. I was at a dinner party and someone asked me, "So, what do you do for fun?" And I froze, because the honest answer was, nothing, really. I spent my evenings scrolling through my phone, watching shows I didn't care about, eating food that made me feel terrible. But here's the thing. I didn't say that. Instead, I said, "Oh, I'm really into hiking and photography," which was a complete lie. I hadn't been hiking in months, and my camera was collecting dust. Why did I lie? Because I was describing who I wanted to be, not who I actually was. And that moment made me realize something crucial. There was a massive gap between my aspirational identity and my actual behavior. Most of us have this gap. We see ourselves as someone who's going to get in shape, or someone who's going to start that business, or someone who's going to learn that skill, but we're living like someone completely different. The beautiful thing about identity is that it's not fixed. You're not stuck being who you've been. You can literally decide right now to become someone else and then prove it to yourself through your actions. Here's how it works. Every single action you take is either confirming your old identity or building your new one. When you choose to work out, instead of hitting snooze, you're voting for "I am someone who values their health." When you write that page instead of scrolling social media, you're voting for "I am a creator, not just a consumer." Your identity is basically a democracy, and your daily actions are the votes. The candidate with the most votes wins. But here's the mistake most people make. They try to make massive identity shifts overnight. They go from "I never exercise" to "I'm going to be a marathon runner." The gap is too big. Your brain doesn't buy it, and neither does your behavior. The smarter approach? Start with micro-identities that feel believable right now. Instead of "I am a writer," start with "I am someone who writes." Instead of "I am an athlete," start with "I am someone who moves their body daily." Instead of "I am an entrepreneur," start with "I am someone who takes action on ideas." These micro-identities are close enough to who you are now that your brain accepts them, but different enough that they pull you toward growth. I started calling myself someone who shows up instead of trying to be disciplined or successful. That one shift changed everything. Because showing up is simple. Even on my worst days, I could show up, write one sentence, do one push-up, make one sales call. And here's what happened. After months of showing up, I didn't need to call myself that anymore. I just was that person. The identity became so automatic that I didn't even think about it. The 3 questions that change everything. When you're trying to build a new identity, you need to get crystal clear on 3 questions. I write these down and keep them visible because they guide every decision I make. Question 1, who do I want to become? Not what do you want to achieve. Who do you want to be? Because achievements are temporary, but identity is lasting. You might want to lose 20 pounds, but who's the person who maintains that weight loss? You might want to write a book, but who's the person who writes consistently? Get specific. What does this person do daily? How do they talk to themselves? How do they handle setbacks? What are their non-negotiables? Question 2. What would that person do in this situation? This becomes your decision-making filter. You're at a crossroads. Should you watch another episode or go to bed? Ask yourself, what would the person I'm becoming do right now? This isn't about perfection. Sometimes the answer is rest and enjoy the show. But most of the time, you know exactly what your future self would choose, and every time you make that choice, you're closing the gap between who you are and who you want to be. Question 3. What's the smallest action I can take right now to prove I'm that person? This is where the rubber meets the road. Big declarations don't change your identity. Small, consistent actions do. You can't become someone who's in great shape by thinking about it, but you can become that person by doing 5 squats right now, then 5 more tomorrow, then adding a short walk the next day. Each small action is evidence, and your brain loves evidence. It builds confidence. It creates momentum. It makes the identity feel real instead of aspirational. Designing your perfect environment. Let me paint you 2 different scenarios. Tell me which one sounds more familiar. Scenario 1, you wake up and your phone is on your nightstand. You check it just for a second to see the time. 30 minutes later, you're still scrolling through emails and social media. You finally drag yourself out of bed, go to the kitchen, and the first thing you see is the leftover pizza from last night. You eat a slice while standing at the counter, feeling vaguely guilty. You think about working out, but your gym clothes are somewhere in the laundry pile, and the gym bag is in the closet. You tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. Scenario 2. You wake up and your phone is charging in another room. The first thing you see is the glass of water you left on your nightstand and your workout clothes folded neatly on the chair. You put them on half asleep. You go to the kitchen and your pre-made smoothie ingredients are already measured out in the blender. You blend it, drink it, and by the time your brain fully wakes up, you're already walking out the door to the gym. Same person, different environment, completely different outcome. Your environment is making thousands of micro decisions for you every single day. Most people try to overcome a bad environment with willpower, and that's like trying to swim upstream in a river. You might make progress for a while, but eventually the current wins. The smart approach: change the river. I spent years trying to be more disciplined with my phone. I'd tell myself I wouldn't check it first thing in the morning. I'd promise I'd only use it for 30 minutes a day. And I'd fail every single time because my phone was always right there, calling to me with its little red notification badges. Then I tried something different. I put my phone in a drawer in my office before bed. Not just across the room, in a completely different part of my apartment. And I bought a cheap alarm clock. The first morning was weird. I woke up and instinctively reached for my phone. It wasn't there. My brain kind of short-circuited for a second. Then I got up because what else was I going to do? No heroic willpower required, no battling with myself. The environment made the choice for me. Here's the framework I use now for designing environments that support discipline. Step 1. Eliminate friction for good behaviors. Make the things you want to do as easy as possible. If you want to read more, put books everywhere. On your nightstand, on the coffee table, in your bathroom. If you want to eat healthier, prep your meals on Sunday so healthy eating is grab and go during the week. If you want to work out consistently, lay out your clothes the night before. Every step of friction you remove makes the behavior exponentially more likely. Step 2. Add friction for bad behaviors. Make the things you want to avoid harder to do. If you want to stop mindlessly snacking, don't keep snacks in the house. Not in the back of the cabinet, not hidden away, completely gone. If you want to stop watching so much TV, unplug it and put the remote in a drawer in another room. If you want to stop doom scrolling, delete social media apps from your phone. Every step of friction you add makes the behavior exponentially less likely. Step 3. Create visual cues for your identity. Your environment should constantly remind you of who you're becoming. Put a photo of a mountain you want to climb on your wall. Keep your running shoes by the door. Put a quote that resonates with you where you'll see it every morning. These aren't just decorations. They're identity reinforcements. Every time you see them, you're reminded of your commitment to yourself. I know this might sound extreme to some of you. I shouldn't have to remove all the cookies from my house. I should just have the discipline not to eat them. And you're right. In a perfect world, you would. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where your tired, stressed, end-of-day self is going to make different choices than your motivated morning self. Design your environment for your weakest moments, not your strongest ones. The habit stacking revolution. Okay, here's a game-changing strategy that made building new habits almost effortless for me. Habit stacking. The idea is simple. Instead of trying to build habits based on time or motivation, you attach new habits to existing ones. You use behaviors you already do automatically as triggers for new behaviors you want to build. Here's how it works. You identify something you already do every day without thinking about it. Maybe it's pouring your morning coffee. Maybe it's brushing your teeth. Maybe it's sitting down at your desk to start work. Then you add a new tiny habit immediately after it. The formula is, after I existing habit, I will new tiny habit. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will write down 3 things I'm grateful for. After I brush my teeth at night, I will lay out my workout clothes for tomorrow. After I sit down at my desk, I will spend 2 minutes planning my top 3 priorities. The existing habit becomes the trigger. You don't have to remember. You don't have to rely on motivation. The sequence just flows naturally. I started with the coffee one. Every morning I pour coffee, it's automatic. So I put my journal right next to the coffee maker. When I poured my coffee, I'd see the journal, and I'd write 3 things I was grateful for while the coffee brewed. After 2 weeks, it felt weird not to do it. The habit had linked itself to the coffee routine. Then I stacked another habit. After I write my gratitude, I do 2 minutes of stretching while drinking my coffee. Then another. After stretching, I review my calendar and set my intentions for the day. Within a month, I had built a powerful morning routine without relying on any willpower. Each habit triggered the next one like dominoes. The key is starting small. Don't try to stack a 30-minute meditation onto your morning coffee. Stack 2 minutes of breathing exercises. Don't try to stack an hour-long workout onto brushing your teeth. Stack 5 push-ups. The size doesn't matter at this stage. What matters is building the neural pathway between the existing habit and the new one. Once that pathway is solid, you can gradually expand the new habit. The minimum viable consistency rule. Let me tell you about the worst mistake I made when I was trying to build discipline. I was so excited about changing my life that I created this elaborate plan. Wake up at 5 a.m., meditate for 20 minutes, work out for an hour, journal for 30 minutes, eat a perfect breakfast, and start deep work by 7 a.m. Day 1, crushed it. Felt like a superhero. Day 2, pretty good, though I was tired. Day 3, I slept through my alarm. The whole routine collapsed. I felt like a failure and gave up entirely. Sound familiar? The problem wasn't my commitment. The problem was that I set the bar so high that missing even one element felt like total failure. And when you feel like you've failed, your brain says, "See, I told you that you couldn't do it." Now I use what I call the minimum viable consistency rule. For every habit I want to build, I define 2 versions. The full version. This is what I do on good days when I have time and energy. Maybe it's a 45-minute workout, or writing 1,000 words, or cooking an elaborate healthy meal. The minimum version. This is the absolute bare minimum that still counts as keeping the habit alive. Maybe it's 5 push-ups, or writing 1 sentence, or eating 1 piece of fruit. The magic is this. I commit to the minimum version no matter what. Even on my worst days. Even when I'm traveling. Even when I'm sick. Even when everything is falling apart. Because here's the truth. Maintaining the streak is more important than the size of the action. When I do my 5 push-ups on a terrible day, I'm not building much muscle, but I'm building something far more valuable, the identity of someone who never breaks their commitments to themselves. And here's what happens. Most days, once I start the minimum version, I end up doing more. I do 5 push-ups, and then I think, well, I'm already down here. I might as well do 20. I write 1 sentence, and it becomes a paragraph, then a page. But even if it doesn't, even if I only do the minimum, I've won. The streak continues. The identity strengthens. The discipline muscle grows. Let me give you a real example. I have a friend named Jessica who wanted to start running. She made her minimum viable consistency put on running shoes and step outside. That's it. If she did that, the day counted as a win. Some days, she'd put on her shoes, step outside, and immediately come back in. Technically, she'd met her commitment, but most days, once she was outside with her shoes on, she'd think, I might as well walk around the block. And then she'd jog a little, and then she'd run. 6 months later, she ran her first 10K, but it all started with put on shoes and step outside. The power of never zero. This connects to a principle that saved me during my hardest times. Never zero. Never zero means that no matter what happens, you do something toward your goal. Even if it's the tiniest possible action, even if it's laughably small, never zero. You're exhausted after a brutal day at work? Don't skip your workout entirely. Do one push-up. Seriously, just one. Never zero. You're overwhelmed and can't write the chapter you planned? Write one sentence. Never zero. You're too tired to cook the healthy meal you prepped? Eat one carrot. Never zero. I know this sounds ridiculous. What difference does one push-up make? Here's what difference it makes. It keeps your identity intact. You're still someone who works out every day. You're still someone who writes daily. You're still someone who eats vegetables. And here's the psychological magic. Doing one push-up is infinitely better than doing 0 push-ups. It's not 1% better. It's infinitely better. Because you went from breaking your commitment to keeping it. Your brain tracks patterns. When you break a streak, your brain starts to expect more breaks. But when you maintain the streak, even with minimal effort, your brain expects continuation. I've had days where I did one push-up and felt proud. Not because one push-up matters physically, but because I honored my commitment to myself. And that matters psychologically. The 2-day rule. Here's another strategy that's kept me consistent through life's chaos. The 2-day rule. The rule is simple. I never skip the same habit 2 days in a row. Miss a workout on Monday? That's okay. Life happens. But Tuesday is non-negotiable. Skip journaling on Wednesday? Fine. But Thursday, I'm back. This rule acknowledges that perfection isn't realistic. You're going to have days where things don't go according to plan. Weddings, funerals, sick kids, work emergencies, travel delays. Life is messy. But if you never skip 2 days in a row, you never lose momentum. 1 day off is a break. 2 days off is the beginning of a new pattern, and patterns are what we're trying to build. The 2-day rule also removes the all-or-nothing thinking that destroys most people's discipline. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to never be off for more than a day. Building your personal accountability system. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. You're going to fail at maintaining discipline sometimes. Even with perfect systems, even with the right environment, even with strong identity. You're human. You're going to have bad weeks. The question isn't whether you'll fail. It's how quickly you'll recover. Most people fail once and spiral. They miss a workout and think, well, I already broke my streak. Might as well take the rest of the week off. They eat one unhealthy meal and decide, I've already ruined my diet. Might as well finish the day with ice cream. This is what I call the what the hell effect, and it's a killer. The antidote is having a recovery system in place before you need it. Here's mine. Step 1. Acknowledge without judgment. When I slip up, I notice it and name it without the emotional drama. I skipped my workout today. Not, I'm such a lazy piece of garbage who will never change. Just the facts. Step 2. Get curious, not critical. I ask myself, what happened? Was I actually too tired, or did I let other things take priority? Was my environment set up for success, or was I fighting unnecessary friction? This isn't about making excuses. It's about gathering data to improve my systems. Step 3. Implement the immediate recovery protocol. Within the next hour, I do the minimum viable version of whatever I missed. Skipped my morning workout? I do 5 push-ups right now. Skipped my writing? I write 1 sentence immediately. This breaks the spiral before it starts. I don't wait until tomorrow to get back on track. I get back on track now. Step 4. Adjust the system if needed. If I'm consistently failing at a particular habit, the problem isn't me. The problem is the system. Maybe my minimum version is still too ambitious. Maybe my environment needs tweaking. Maybe I need to stack the habit differently. I treat failures as feedback, not as character flaws. Okay, so you've built the systems, you've designed your environment, you've started taking action, and then your brain starts fighting back. You know that voice, right? The one that says, "You're too tired today," or "You'll never actually achieve this," or "Who are you kidding? You're not that type of person." This is where most people lose the battle, not because their systems are wrong, but because they don't know how to handle their own mind. So let's talk about the mental game of discipline, because this is where everything either comes together or falls apart. When everything falls apart, let me tell you about my lowest point. I'd been building momentum for 3 months, working out daily, eating clean, writing consistently, meditating every morning. I felt unstoppable. Then my mom got sick, and I had to fly across the country to help take care of her. Suddenly, I was sleeping on a couch in a hospital waiting room. My routines were impossible. My carefully designed environment was gone, and within 2 days, every single habit I'd built came crashing down. I remember sitting in that hospital cafeteria, eating terrible vending machine food at 2 a.m., feeling like a complete failure. All that work, all that progress, gone. I thought, see, I knew I couldn't maintain this. I'm not actually a disciplined person. I was just pretending. That thought pattern right there, that's the real enemy, not the circumstances, not the broken routines, the story I was telling myself about what it all meant. Here's what I know now that I wish I knew then. Discipline isn't about perfection, it's about recovery. The most disciplined people in the world aren't people who never fail. They're people who fail and get back up faster than everyone else. They don't spiral. They don't catastrophize. They don't let one bad day become a bad week, a bad month, a bad year. After 3 days in that hospital, I did something different. I stopped trying to maintain my full routine. Instead, I asked myself, what's the absolute minimum I can do to prove to myself that I'm still me? I couldn't work out in the hospital, but I could do 20 push-ups in the bathroom. I couldn't meditate for 20 minutes, but I could take 5 deep breaths before walking into my mom's room. I couldn't write my usual 1,000 words, but I could jot down 3 sentences in my phone's notes app. Were these tiny actions going to move the needle on my goals? No, but they did something more important. They kept my identity intact during chaos. Because here's the truth. Life will always throw you curveballs. Emergencies, illnesses, job changes, relationship problems, unexpected travel. You can't control when chaos hits, but you can control whether chaos destroys your discipline or just temporarily interrupts it. The 3 types of failure. Not all failures are created equal, and understanding the difference changed how I approach setbacks. Type 1. The miss. This is when you simply miss a day or skip a habit. You slept through your alarm. You had an unexpected meeting. You just plain forgot. It happens. The miss is the least dangerous type of failure because it's isolated. One missed day doesn't mean anything unless you make it mean something. The recovery protocol for a miss is simple. Do your minimum viable action within the next hour. Then get back to your normal routine tomorrow. Don't overthink it. Don't make it dramatic. Just course correct and move on. Type 2. The slide. This is when you miss multiple days in a row and you can feel yourself sliding back into old patterns. Maybe you skipped the gym Monday, then Tuesday, and now it's Thursday, and you still haven't gone. The slide is more dangerous because you're starting to lose momentum. Your automatic behaviors are weakening, and you're having to rely on willpower again. The recovery protocol for a slide is more intensive. You need to reestablish your environmental cues. Recommit to your minimum viable version and possibly add some external accountability. Text a friend and tell them you're getting back on track. Put your gym bag in your car. Make the next right action so obvious that you can't miss it. Type 3. The spiral. This is when you've not only stopped the behavior, but you've started telling yourself a story about why you stopped. I'm just not disciplined enough. This isn't for me. I was fooling myself thinking I could change. The spiral is the most dangerous because now it's not just about the behavior anymore. It's about your identity. You're reinforcing the old story you were trying to rewrite. The recovery protocol for a spiral requires going back to basics. You need to reconnect with why you started in the first place. You need to prove to yourself with one small action that the old story isn't true. And you might need to redesign your systems because something clearly wasn't working. The key insight is this: catch yourself as early as possible. A miss is easier to recover from than a slide. A slide is easier to recover from than a spiral. The faster you notice and respond, the less damage gets done. Dealing with the inner critic. Let's talk about that voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. Because I'm willing to bet it's loud, it's persistent, and it's really convincing. Mine used to say things like, "Everyone else can do this effortlessly. Why is it so hard for you?" Or, "You're going to fail eventually, you always do." Or, "Who are you trying to impress? Nobody cares about your discipline." I spent years trying to silence that voice, trying to be more positive, trying to drown it out with affirmations. None of it worked. The critic always came back, usually louder. Then I learned something that changed everything. You don't have to silence the critic. You just have to stop letting it make your decisions. Think of it like this. Imagine you're hiking up a mountain, and there's this person walking next to you complaining the entire time. "This is too hard. We should turn back. We're never going to make it. Everyone else is faster than us." You have two options. You can stop, turn around, and argue with them, trying to convince them they're wrong. Or you can just keep walking while they complain. The second option is way more effective. When my inner critic says, You're going to fail at this. I don't argue. I don't try to convince it otherwise. I just think, that's an interesting opinion. And then I do the thing anyway. It's like my mind is a radio that's always playing in the background. Sometimes it plays helpful songs. Sometimes it plays garbage. But I don't have to change the station. I can just let it play while I do what I need to do. This is called cognitive diffusion, and it's one of the most powerful mental skills you can develop. You're creating distance between yourself and your thoughts. You're recognizing that just because you think something doesn't make it true. The motivation myth. Here's a question I get all the time. How do you stay motivated? And my answer always surprises people. I don't. I'm not motivated most days. I don't wake up excited to work out. I don't feel inspired to write. I don't have some burning passion driving me forward every single morning, and that's completely okay. Because motivation is not a prerequisite for action. Most people have this backwards. They think, feel motivated, then take action, then see results. But the actual sequence is, take action, then see results, then feel motivated. Motivation follows action. It doesn't precede it. I learned this during my running phase. I hate running. Genuinely hate it. Every single time I lace up my shoes, part of me is thinking, why are we doing this? This is terrible. But here's what happens. About 10 minutes into the run, I start feeling better. My body warms up. The endorphins kick in. My mind clears. And by the end, I almost always feel great. If I waited to feel motivated before running, I'd never run. But if I just start running, despite not feeling motivated, the motivation shows up mid-run. This applies to everything. You don't need to feel like writing before you write. You don't need to feel excited about your work before you start working. You don't need to feel energized before you exercise. You just need to start. The feelings will catch up. I use a simple rule now. I give myself permission to quit any activity after 5 minutes. If I start writing, and after 5 minutes, I genuinely want to stop, I can stop. If I start a workout, and after 5 minutes I'm truly miserable, I can leave. But I have to start. And 99 times out of 100, after 5 minutes, I keep going. Because starting is the hard part. Continuing is much easier. Energy management over time management. Here's something nobody tells you about discipline. It's not about managing your time. It's about managing your energy. You could have all the time in the world, but if you're exhausted, stressed, and burned out, you won't do anything productive with it. On the flip side, you could have limited time, but if your energy is high and focused, you'll accomplish more in 2 hours than most people do in a full day. I learned this the hard way. I used to schedule my days perfectly. Every hour accounted for, every task prioritized. But by 3 p.m., I'd be mentally fried, staring at my to-do list, unable to focus on anything. The problem wasn't my schedule, it was my energy. Now I think about energy in 4 categories. Physical energy. This comes from sleep, nutrition, and movement. It's the foundation of everything else. If your body is tired or running on junk food, your mental and emotional energy tank. I protect my sleep like it's sacred. I eat real food that gives me sustained energy, not sugar crashes. I move my body every day, even if it's just a walk around the block. Not negotiable. Mental energy. This is your capacity for focus and decision-making. It's highest in the morning and depletes throughout the day. I schedule my hardest mental work for my peak energy hours, which for me is 9 a.m. to noon. I save email, meetings, and administrative tasks for the afternoon when my mental energy is lower. Emotional energy. This is your capacity to deal with stress, conflict, and challenging emotions. Some things drain it, negative people, social media drama, and some things replenish it, time in nature, genuine connection, creative expression. I'm ruthless about protecting my emotional energy now. I've unfollowed people who make me feel bad. I've set boundaries with energy vampires. I spend time with people who lift me up, not drag me down. Spiritual energy. This is your sense of purpose and meaning. It's what makes you feel like your actions matter beyond just checking boxes. I connect my daily actions to something bigger than myself. Why am I working out? Not just to look good, but to be healthy enough to be present for the people I love. Why am I writing? Not just to hit a word count, but to help someone who's struggling like I struggled. When you manage all 4 types of energy, discipline becomes so much easier. You're not trying to force yourself to do things with an empty tank. You're keeping the tank full, so action feels natural. The recovery. Protocol. Let me share something that most productivity gurus won't tell you. Rest is not the opposite of discipline. Rest is part of discipline. You can't sprint forever. Your brain, your body, your emotions, they all need recovery time. And if you don't schedule that recovery, your system will force it through burnout, illness, or total breakdown. I used to think that disciplined people just pushed through exhaustion, that they were tougher than me, able to handle more stress, somehow superhuman. Then I started studying actual high performers, athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, and I realized they all have one thing in common. They're incredibly intentional about recovery. Professional athletes don't train hard every single day. They have intense training days followed by active recovery days, followed by complete rest days. Because that's how you build strength. You stress the muscle, then you let it recover and rebuild stronger. Your discipline muscle works the same way. Now, I build recovery into my systems. Daily recovery. Every evening, I have a wind-down routine. No screens for the last hour before bed. A hot shower. 10 minutes of reading fiction. This signals to my brain that the workday is over and it's time to recharge. Weekly recovery. 1 day a week, I do absolutely nothing productive. No goals, no optimization, no self-improvement, just enjoyment. Sometimes that's hiking. Sometimes that's seeing friends. Sometimes that's literally lying on my couch watching movies. Seasonal recovery. A few times a year, I take a complete break from my normal routines. A week-long vacation where I don't check work email. A long weekend in a cabin with no agenda. This prevents long-term burnout and gives me perspective on whether my systems are still serving me. The counterintuitive thing is this. Since I started prioritizing recovery, my discipline has actually gotten stronger. I have more energy for the things that matter. I'm more creative, more focused, more consistent. Because discipline isn't about constant effort. It's about sustainable effort. It's about being able to show up tomorrow and next week and next year, not just today. Dealing with comparison. Let's talk about something that's probably sabotaging you right now. Comparison. You see someone on social media who seems to have it all figured out. They're working out every day, eating perfectly, building a business, spending quality time with their family, traveling the world. And you think, I can barely manage to work out 3 times a week. What's wrong with me? Here's what's wrong. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. That person on Instagram who looks like they have perfect discipline, you're seeing their best moments. You're not seeing the days they struggled, the workouts they skipped, the meals they regretted, the times they wanted to quit. Everyone's fighting their own battles. Everyone has areas where discipline comes easily and areas where it's a constant struggle. The guy who has incredible fitness discipline might be a disaster with his finances. The woman who's crushing it in her career might be struggling with her health. Comparison is a trap because it's never fair. You're comparing your weaknesses to other people's strengths, your struggles to their successes, your full reality to their curated image. I used to do this constantly, especially with writing. I'd see authors who published multiple books a year and think, I'm such a slow writer, I'll never be successful. It paralyzed me. Then I learned something important. My only competition is who I was yesterday. Am I more consistent than I was last month? Am I making progress compared to last year? Am I moving forward, even slowly? That's all that matters. Now, when I catch myself comparing, I literally say out loud, not my race. Because it's not. Their journey is not my journey. Their pace is not my pace. Their definition of success is not mine. The only question I need to answer is, am I becoming who I want to become? Building stress resilience. Here's a hard truth. Discipline is easiest when life is easy. When everything's going well, when you're rested and healthy, when you have time and energy, maintaining good habits isn't that hard. The real test of discipline is how you perform under pressure. And if your discipline systems only work when conditions are perfect, they're not real discipline. They're just compliance with favorable circumstances. So you need to build what I call stress resilience, the ability to maintain your commitments even when life gets chaotic. I do this through stress inoculation. Basically, I deliberately expose myself to manageable stress in controlled ways so that when uncontrolled stress hits, I'm ready for it. Cold showers. I take a cold shower every morning, not because I enjoy it, I definitely don't, but because it teaches me that I can do hard things even when I don't want to. Every morning, my brain says, don't get in that cold water. And every morning, I do it anyway. That builds the muscle of doing things despite resistance. Fasting. Once a week, I skip breakfast and lunch. Again, not for any magical health benefits, but because it teaches me that discomfort is temporary and I can function just fine while experiencing it. When the afternoon slump hits and I want to snack, I practice sitting with the discomfort instead of immediately satisfying it. Challenging workouts. I regularly do workouts that push me past my comfort zone, not to injury, but to the point where my mind is screaming at me to stop. I practice pushing through that voice for one more rep, one more minute. These controlled stressors build my capacity to handle uncontrolled stress. When work gets crazy or life throws me a curveball, I've already proven to myself that I can maintain discipline under pressure. The power of community. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Discipline is easier with other people. I know. We like to think of discipline as this solitary thing, the lone wolf grinding away while everyone else sleeps. But that's mostly Hollywood nonsense. Real discipline is often communal. When I'm surrounded by people who value health, I'm more likely to maintain my fitness habits. When I'm in a community of writers, I'm more likely to write consistently. When I spend time with people who are building businesses, I'm more energized about my own work. Your environment includes the people in it, and people are either pulling you toward your goals or pulling you away from them. I'm not saying you need to abandon everyone who isn't super disciplined, but I am saying you need to be intentional about who you spend your most time with. I joined a running group, even though I hate running, because when it's 6 a.m. and cold outside and I don't want to go, knowing that other people are counting on me gets me out the door. The discipline becomes easier because it's social, not just personal. I have a writing partner who I check in with every morning. We share what we're working on and hold each other accountable. On days when I don't feel like writing, I still do it because I know she's going to ask about my progress. Find your people. Build your community. Make discipline a team sport, not a solo mission. All right, let's get real for a second. You've built systems, you've designed your environment, you've learned how to recover from setbacks. But here's where most people still mess up. They try to be disciplined about everything all at once, and they burn out spectacularly. The secret that high performers know: discipline isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most and letting everything else fall away. The priority revolution. Let me tell you about a conversation that changed my entire approach to productivity. I was having coffee with a mentor of mine, someone who'd built multiple successful companies, stayed in incredible shape, maintained strong relationships, and somehow seemed to have time for everything. I asked him, "How do you manage to do it all?" He laughed and said, "I don't. I just do 3 things really well and ignore most everything else." That hit me hard because I was trying to do everything. Work out twice a day, write 1,000 words, build my business, learn a new language, read 50 pages, meditate, journal, meal prep, network. The list went on, and you know what? I was failing at all of it, because when everything is a priority, nothing is. Here's the framework that changed everything: the rule of 3. Every day, I identify 3 things that, if I accomplish them, will make the day a success. Not 10 things, not 20. 3. These aren't just any 3 things. They're the 3 things that move the needle toward my most important goals. Everything else is secondary. For me right now, those 3 things are: write for 2 hours, work out for 30 minutes, and spend quality time with my family. That's it. If I do those 3 things, the day is a win, regardless of what else happens. Some days I do more. Some days I handle emails, take meetings, run errands, do household tasks. But those aren't what I measure success by. They're just bonus rounds. This seems overly simplistic, right? But think about it. If you did 3 meaningful things every single day for a year, that's over 1,000 significant actions toward your goals. Most people don't take 1,000 significant actions in a decade because they're too busy being productive. with trivial stuff. The Eisenhower Decision Matrix. Now, how do you decide what those three things should be? This is where most people get stuck. Everything feels important. Everything feels urgent. I use a simple framework called the Eisenhower Matrix. It sorts activities into four categories: important and urgent, crisis situations, deadlines, emergencies. These you handle immediately. Important but not urgent. Planning, building relationships, exercise, personal development. These are where your three daily priorities should come from. Urgent but not important. Most emails, most meetings, most interruptions. These are time wasters disguised as work. Neither urgent nor important. Mindless scrolling, busy work, distractions. These you eliminate completely. Most people spend their entire day in the urgent categories, constantly firefighting, always reactive. They're busy, but not productive. Exhausted, but not accomplished. Disciplined people spend most of their time in the important, but not urgent category. They're building systems, developing skills, strengthening relationships, taking care of their health. This is where real progress happens. Here's my morning routine now. Before I check email, before I look at my phone, before I let the world tell me what's urgent, I write down my three most important tasks. Then I protect time for those tasks like my life depends on it. Because honestly, it does. Your life is the sum of what you consistently pay attention to. If you spend it on other people's urgencies, you'll wake up at 60 having lived someone else's life. Saying no without guilt. Learning to prioritize means learning to say no. And for most of us, saying no feels terrible. We don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to miss opportunities. We don't want to seem lazy or unhelpful. But here's what I learned. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you're saying no to something important. Every hour you spend on someone else's priority is an hour you can't spend on your own. I used to say yes to everything: coffee meetings with random acquaintances, projects that didn't align with my goals, events I didn't actually want to attend. I thought I was being nice, being helpful, being a good person. What I was actually doing was betraying myself and my goals. Now I have a simple filter. Before I commit to anything, I ask, does this directly support one of my top 3 priorities? If the answer is no, I politely decline. And here's the thing. Most people respect clear boundaries. When you say, I appreciate the invitation, but I'm focused on some specific goals right now and need to protect my time, people understand. The ones who don't understand aren't people you need to be spending time with. Anyway, the guilt fades when you realize that saying no to trivial things is actually saying yes to your future self. Managing mental energy. Let's talk about something crucial that nobody teaches you. Your brain has limited processing power, and you need to use it strategically. Think of your mental energy like a battery. It's fully charged when you wake up, and every decision you make drains it a little. By evening, it's nearly dead, which is why you make your worst choices at night. This is why Mark Zuckerberg wears the same outfit every day, why Obama had his suits pre-selected. It's not about fashion, it's about preserving mental energy for decisions that actually matter. I've simplified my life radically to reduce decision fatigue. Morning routine, exactly the same every day. No decisions required. Meals, I eat the same breakfast and lunch Monday through Friday. Dinner has some variety, but I meal prep on Sundays. so there's no daily decision. Clothes. I have a uniform. 5 identical shirts, 2 pairs of pants, 1 pair of shoes. Getting dressed takes 15 seconds and 0 mental energy. This might sound boring to you, and honestly, it kind of is. But you know what's not boring? Having mental energy left over to work on creative projects, to be present with people I love, to make strategic decisions about my business. I'm not wasting brain power on trivial choices. I'm saving it for what matters. The deep work protocol. Here's where discipline gets serious. Protecting time for focused, distraction-free work on your most important priorities. Cal Newport calls this deep work, the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks. And it's becoming increasingly rare because our world is designed to interrupt us constantly. Email notifications, text messages, social media alerts, Slack messages, phone calls. The modern world is an attention-destroying machine, but deep work is where real value gets created. You can't write a book in 5-minute increments between notifications. You can't solve complex problems while constantly checking your phone. You can't create anything meaningful without sustained focus. I protect deep work time like it's sacred. Here's my system. Time blocks. Every morning, 9 a.m. to noon, is deep work time. No meetings, no calls, no exceptions. Environment. Phone in another room, on airplane mode. Computer disconnected from internet unless absolutely necessary. Door closed. Headphones on. Single tasking. One task, one project. Complete focus. No multitasking, no task switching, no quick checks of email. 3 hours of deep work every morning is worth more than 8 hours of distracted, interrupted work. I get more done before lunch than most people get done all day. And here's the crazy part. It's not even hard once you build the system. The hard part is protecting the boundary. Saying no to the meeting request. Ignoring the text message. Letting the email wait. But once you experience the satisfaction of making real progress on something that matters, you'll protect that time fiercely. Stress as fuel. Let me flip something on its head for you. Stress isn't always the enemy. Sometimes stress is exactly what you need. There's a concept called eustress, positive stress that enhances performance. It's the nervous energy before a presentation, the pressure of a deadline, the challenge of a difficult workout. Without any stress, you stagnate. You get comfortable, complacent, soft. A little stress keeps you sharp, focused, growing. The key is finding your optimal stress level. Too little, and you're bored and unmotivated. Too much, and you're overwhelmed and paralyzed. But right in the middle, that's where peak performance lives. I actually add stress to my life, intentionally. I sign up for races I'm not ready for. I commit to projects with tight deadlines. I take on challenges that scare me a little. Because here's what I've learned. I'm capable of way more than I think I am, but I only discover that capability when I'm under pressure. The difference between destructive stress and productive stress is control. When stress happens to you, unexpected crises, other people's emergencies, it's destructive. When you choose stress strategically, challenging goals, growth opportunities, it's productive. The mind management game. Okay, final piece of this puzzle, learning to manage your mind. Your brain is going to throw all kinds of unhelpful thoughts at you. This is too hard. You're not good enough. Why bother? You'll probably fail anyway. These thoughts feel true. They feel like facts. But they're just mental noise, no more meaningful than the sound of traffic outside your window. I used to think I had to believe positive thoughts to be successful. I try to replace "I can't do this" with "I can do anything," but that felt fake and didn't work. Now I don't try to change my thoughts at all. I just notice them and keep moving. My brain says, "You're too tired to work out." I think, "Interesting thought," and I put on my workout clothes anyway. My brain says, "This writing is terrible." I think, "Could be," and I keep writing. My brain says, "You should check your phone." I think, "Maybe later," and I stay focused. I've stopped treating my thoughts as commands and started treating them as suggestions I can accept or decline. This is incredibly liberating. You don't have to have perfect thoughts to take perfect action. You just have to be willing to take action despite imperfect thoughts. Putting it all together. So here's where you are now. You understand that discipline is about choosing your priorities ruthlessly and protecting them fiercely. You know that mental energy is limited and should be conserved for what matters. You've learned to use stress strategically and manage your mind effectively. The question is, what are your 3 priorities? What are the 3 things that, if you did them consistently for the next year, would completely transform your life? Get clear on those. Write them down. Build your entire day around protecting time for them. Everything else, it can wait. It can be delegated, or it can just not happen at all. Because you're not trying to do everything anymore. You're trying to do the right things consistently. And that's how real transformation happens. We've covered a lot of ground together: systems, environment, identity, habits, recovery, priorities, mental mastery. But here's the final piece that brings it all together: integration. Because knowing all this means nothing if you don't actually use it, and using it once means nothing if you don't sustain it. So let's talk about how to make discipline your permanent operating system, not just another thing you tried for a few weeks. The integration framework. Here's what most people do wrong. They try to implement everything at once. They read something like this, get super excited, and tomorrow they're waking up at 5 a.m., meditating, working out, journaling, eating perfectly, working on their side project, and being present with their family. By next week, they've crashed and burned. Integration isn't about doing everything. It's about building one solid layer at a time until you have an unshakable foundation. Layer 1. Your core identity. Start here. Who are you becoming? Not what. Are you achieving? Who are you being? Choose one identity statement that resonates with you. I am someone who honors their commitments. I am someone who invests in their growth. I am someone who shows up consistently. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every morning. Let it guide your decisions for the next 30 days. Every action either confirms this identity or contradicts it. Vote for confirmation. Layer 2. Your minimum system. Next, build your absolute minimum viable routine. This is what you'll do even on your worst days. Mine is simple: 10 minutes of movement, 5 minutes of gratitude, 2 hours of focused work on my top priority. That's it. Some days, I do way more. But those 3 things are non-negotiable. Choose yours. Make it small enough that you can't fail. Make it meaningful enough that it matters. Layer 3. Your environment. Now optimize your space. one change at a time. Week 1. Eliminate one major source of distraction. For most people, that's putting their phone in another room at night. Week 2. Create one environmental cue that supports your identity. Maybe that's laying out workout clothes. Maybe it's keeping a book on your pillow. Week 3. Remove one friction point from a good habit you want to build. Prep your meals. Set up your workspace. Make the right choice easier. Don't try to redesign your entire life overnight. Just make it 1% better each week. The sustainable discipline principle. Here's something crucial. Discipline should make your life better, not harder. If your discipline systems are making you miserable, exhausted, or constantly stressed, something's wrong. That's not discipline. That's punishment. And punishment isn't sustainable. Real discipline should give you more energy, not less. More freedom, not less. More joy, not less. I work out not because I hate my body, but because I love how strong and capable I feel. I eat well not because I'm depriving myself, but because good food makes me feel amazing. I protect my deep work time not because I'm a workaholic, but because creating meaningful work brings me genuine fulfillment. If your discipline feels like a burden, ask yourself, am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I being too rigid? Do I need to adjust my approach? Discipline should serve your life, not consume it. Building your legacy. Let's zoom out for a second. Why does any of this matter? Because your life is happening right now. Not someday when you finally get disciplined, not when you achieve your goals. Right now, today, this moment. And the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your daily actions. How you spend your days is how you spend your life. When you build real discipline, you're not just achieving goals. You're becoming someone you're proud to be. You're creating a life that feels intentional instead of accidental. You're proving to yourself that you can do hard things. That confidence spills over into everything. Your relationships improve because you're showing up as your best self. Your work improves because you're consistently developing your skills. Your health improves because you're treating your body with respect. And here's the ripple effect. When people see you living with discipline, it gives them permission to do the same. Your kids see it, your friends see it, your colleagues see it. You become a model of what's possible. That's legacy, not some grand achievement, just the consistent example of someone who decided to be intentional about their life. The next 30 days. All right, let's make this concrete. Here's your challenge for the next 30 days. Day 1 to 7, Foundation Week. Choose your identity statement. Define your 3 daily priorities. Establish your minimum viable routine. Track your consistency, nothing else. Day 8 to 14, Environment. Week. Make one major environmental change. Remove your biggest distraction. Set up one powerful cue for your most important habit. Continue your minimum. Routine Day 15 to 21, Systems Week. Add one habit stack to your routine. Create your recovery protocol. Build in one rest day. Keep tracking consistency. Day 22 to 30, Integration Week. Evaluate what's working and what's not. Adjust your systems based on real data. Add one small challenge to test yourself. Celebrate your 30-day streak. By day 30, you won't be perfect. You'll still have hard days, but you'll have built something real, a foundation of discipline that you can build on for the rest of your life. the truth about transformation. Let me be completely honest with you. This isn't easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Most people will read this, feel inspired for a day or two, and then go right back to their old patterns. But you're not most people. You wouldn't have made it this far if you were. You're someone who's genuinely committed to change, someone who's tired of living below their potential, someone who's ready to do the work. And here's what I know for sure. If you implement even half of what we've covered, your life will be unrecognizable a year from now. Not because you'll have achieved some massive goal, but because you'll have become someone who consistently does what they say they're going to do. That person has unlimited potential. That person can achieve anything they commit to. That person is unstoppable. Your moment of decision. So here we are. You have everything you need. You understand the psychology. You have the frameworks. You know the strategies. The only question that matters now is, what are you going to do about it? You can close this, feel inspired for a moment, and go back to exactly how things were. Or you can make a different choice. You can decide that today is the day everything changes, not tomorrow, not next Monday, not when conditions are perfect, right now. What's one small action you can take in the next 60 seconds that proves you're serious? Maybe it's writing down your identity statement. Maybe it's doing 5 push-ups. Maybe it's texting a friend to tell them you're committing to change and asking them to check in on you weekly. Do that one thing right now before you move on to whatever's next. Because that's how transformation actually happens. Not through massive declarations or perfect plans. Through small, immediate actions that compound over time. The real beginning. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. You're standing at the start of something incredible. A journey toward becoming the person you've always known you could be. Someone disciplined, someone consistent, someone who lives with intention and purpose. It won't always be easy. You'll have setbacks. You'll have days where you want to quit. You'll face challenges you can't predict right now. But you'll also have wins, small victories that build into bigger ones, moments where you surprise yourself with your own strength. Days where you realize how far you've come. And through it all, you'll have a system that supports you, an environment that guides you, an identity that pulls you forward. You've got this, not because you're special or talented or different from anyone else, but because you understand how discipline actually works, and you're willing to apply it consistently. So here's to your disciplined future. Here's to becoming who you're meant to be. Here's to proving to yourself that you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined. Now go take that first step. Your transformed life is waiting.